welcome back. We are in Matthew 7 this week, and this one has a lot going on as well. So there's a few videos that might be longer than others. So hold on tight as we go into this study of chapter 7. So in today's, we're going to read chapter 7, verses 1 through 6. And Jesus again is focusing on the motives of the heart and being in the right alignment with the kingdom of heaven. So he says, before you judge, make sure that you examine yourself first. Don't have a judgmental spirit. There is a place for having right judgment, but not a judgmental spirit. So judge appropriately. And what is the difference between judgmental spirit and just judging? Well, judgmental spirit comes from a place of condemning, criticizing, finding fault in people. It's a very negative attitude. It's also very self-righteous. It is the sense of superiority when you're judging. Now, the flip side of just passing a judgment is you're forming an opinion based on behaviors, evidence, the things that you have at your understanding to determine whether something is right or wrong. That's the difference. So the context here that Jesus is talking about is do not have a hypocritical, judgmental spirit. So don't judge someone based on a standard that you aren't using for yourself. And that's what the Pharisees, of course, were doing, as we've talked about. So think about it in measuring tools, because he talks about here, in whatever measure you use, it will be measured to you as well. So if you're using measurements and you have a ruler, well, if I'm measuring this piece of paper and I'm using inches, well, the inches are going to be, say 9 inches here. But if I measure in centimeters, it's going to be a vastly different number. So if I say just the number 9, well, what measurement are you using? Are you using centimeters? Are you using inches? There's going to be a big difference between the two because they aren't the same size. 1 inch is more like this, which is going to be hard to see the video, and a centimeter is much tinier. So there is a big difference in how you measure. So Jesus is saying, whatever you measure by, that's how you're going to be measured by. So make sure that if you're using weights, for example, are you using pound or are you using grams? However you use your measurement, that's going to be the measurement that you are measured by. So be consistent and use the Bible as your standard. And if you measure somebody else, you better make sure that you also are measuring up to the same standard. So in just a few short verses from that, in his teaching, Jesus speaks of judging and exposing false teachers. So, and Paul also talks about exercising church discipline. So judging is not wrong if it's done in the right way, using the right standard, the right motives. Again, we'll get back to that motives over and over in the Sermon on the Mount. So before you do make any judgment, you make sure that you are first in alignment with the kingdom of heaven. You know his scripture. You're doing it out of the right pureness of your heart. As we've read in the Beatitudes, that everything is building on each other. So make sure you do it from that place. And not only that, you have to make sure you are clean. I must reform myself before I can help another brother also be reformed and brought back into right alignment. I can't reprove my brother or sister if I haven't first looked at what is in my own heart and life. And this is where he goes into, Jesus uses an illustration of a carpenter. And I totally meant to get a plank. So a plank being a really big beam in your eye. Think about something that's in your eye like this, that's super big. So you have a plank in your own eye while you're trying to get a teeny tiny little speck out of somebody else's eye. Well, can you see clearly? Not at all. So you must get rid of the big plank that's in your eye so that way you can be clear enough. Your brother has a speck and it's bothering him. It is. Anytime you have sawdust in your eyes, it bothers you and you're trying to see and you're trying to get it out, wash it out. And sometimes you do need help with somebody to come alongside and say, open your eye and let me see. Well, that is what we are to do for each other, is to help each other see and bring them back into the right alignment with God. But we cannot do it if we ourselves are blinded and we can't see very well. And that is what Jesus is talking about. And again, of course, he's coming from the perspective that he himself was a carpenter. So this is an illustration that he was very familiar with. So there is a video, and I will see if I can share it in the stories at least, or in the highlight links. But there is a video that I saw that did a great job that before you also judge, don't judge quickly. Make sure you understand what's going on before you just pass a judgment. And this video does a great job of showing that sometimes we see somebody maybe in the parking lot or at the grocery store. One of the examples I think was of a lady with a child that's throwing a temper tantrum, and how we pass quick judgment on that person and think that they're not doing a good job. But we don't know the rest of the story, that this child was just brought into her care as a foster mom, and he had been passed along and had been through some terrible stuff. So all of these things, we must also make sure that we have all the right information before we just go quickly judge. And again, this is also his perspective is talking about helping a brother. Not necessarily you don't judge a stranger until you understand you have that relationship. And so this is what he's talking about here. Now, this next verse to me seemed a bit out of place for years, but I know Jesus is connecting thoughts here, so he's not just bouncing around. So what does it mean when you get to verse 6? Verse 6, do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under your feet and then turn and tear you to pieces. Now, what on earth, how does that tie in to this whole section about judging? Well, not everyone is fit to be reproved, just kind of like we were talking about with strangers. It is lost labor on those around you that will attack your pure heart, that of you trying to bring correction. So don't waste your time. There's no point in it. They're just going to turn back around and attack you. So good counsel and reproof are a holy thing, and they are pearls, they're gold. It's highly valued. They are ordinance of God, and they are precious, but only with the right ones that will receive correction. And why can we say this? Well, Proverbs 25:12 says, like an earring of gold or an ornament of fiery gold is a wise man's rebuke to a listening ear. So we do know that these rebukes are good. There's another verse about the wounds of a friend are to be trusted. So these are good things to be able to have somebody speak into your life and bring rebuke and correction. We need that. We need wise counsel. Proverbs 9:8 says, do not rebuke a mocker or he will hate you. Rebuke a wise man and he will love you. Proverbs 26:11, as a dog returns to his vomit, so a fool repeats his folly. So you can go and try to correct a fool, but they're just going to keep doing it over and over and over because they do not receive. So don't waste your time, basically. Jeremiah 2:30, actually this whole chapter in Jeremiah 2 is a really good one to go back and look at too, because it's about this judgment. In vain I punished your people, they did not respond to correction. So it's in vain to correct somebody that refuses to hear or to be changed or to receive instruction. So our zeal against sin must be guided by discretion when we are bringing correction. Not all is going to receive instruction, counsel, and rebuke, and it does no good to bring loving correction to one who's going to just trample and resent it and then attack you, and they'll become enraged. Now, he's also using the illustration of dogs and pigs here. Dogs and pigs in this time period, they were not domesticated. They weren't allowed into your home to be your pets and all that. They were, this was a very culturally derogatory label. They were lower than the lowest on the social totem pole, if you will. So calling somebody a dog or a pig it was not a very kind thing to say. And it's interesting too. It also means, it's used interchangeably in the Old Testament, even in the New Testament, for a person that is set apart from the Israelite community, the covenant. They were an enemy of God. So it's kind of ironic here that Goliath even says, am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? David, I'm sure, is going, well, I didn't say it, but the shoe fits. So Goliath's own description of himself was perfectly accurate. Both animals with dogs and pigs, they're both scavenger animals, and they both eat decay, they eat death. So they were not, now dogs are not called unclean in the Bible, they're not specified, but we know that pigs are. So this label reduced someone to that lowest place. Even the dogs that were used to train and guard flocks still were not brought into the home. Pigs were repulsive, and both symbolize this filth and paganism, and both are also referred to in 2 Peter 2:22, and also in Proverbs 26:11. There's also other external resources that would show you that dogs and pigs were revulsed during this time period, but they were also in this illustration of saying, don't throw your best, your wise counsel, your gold, your precious jewelry, don't throw them at somebody who will not receive it. These are fools, and all that will happen is that it will be attacked, and you'll be hurt more, and you'll be trampled. So wise counsel is good, judging is good, but not a judgmental spirit. And be careful that when you measure somebody and that you speak into your brother or sister's life, that you have checked your own motives first, you have checked your heart and made sure that you are clean first.